All right, here we go. Charles Gaspard, welcome to the show. How are you, man?
Yeah,
Good to
thanks for
see you.
having me.
Absolutely, man. I got to tell you, I'm excited to see you. You and I have known each other for a long time. And I think that you have really grown a lot in your field of lending and commercial. And the personal touch I've seen you do with your different clients has just been absolutely incredible. I've known this from like 10, 15 years ago, I think, that since we first kind of got started talking with each other. Um, I know a lot has changed in your career, some things that you've done.
Mhm.
But tell me a little bit, how did you get into banking? I mean, what prompted that leap?
Yeah, I'm not sure if any kid wishes or hopes to grow up to be a banker, but when I was finishing college at Tulane, I had an opportunity to do the training program at Iberia Bank
Okay.
shortly after graduating, which kind of led me into uh, kind of the typical route for a banker as far as being an underwriter, going to portfolio management,
Okay.
and then starting on smaller businesses and kind of working through the channels to find their own lane. And through that time, I've been able to work with a few restaurants and also do things like nonprofit work with schools,
Nice, nice.
and some commercial and industrial clients as well. So it's been fun 15 years
Yeah.
as of 3 days ago on the 5th. So
Oh,
July.
wow. So,
Yeah.
man, that has been a long time for you.
And it's crazy for anybody to ask you to come to work the day after July 4th. It's absolutely
Well,
crazy.
that's a sign of a true winter. It's only right after the
Yeah.
holidays. Most people are still vacationing around that time, so you're doing good. So it's interesting. So you said you started with Iberia. They got bought out, right, eventually by, I
Mhm.
think, First Horizon. But you've made a recent career change too, didn't you?
Yeah, I've been able to come back with a great group of bankers to acquire MC Bank,
Okay.
which has been a bank with quite a few members that I've worked with in the past at Iberia Bank, and it feels like home. So
Nice.
we're getting back to what our true sense of work is, which is local community work, and the personal touch on banking. So we're really trying to make things as easy as possible for our clients. And we know that process sometimes could get a little arduous if we don't have someone holding
Right.
hands.
No, I could see that for sure. And one of the things that we miss sometimes in our community is that local bank touch because, too many times, some of these banks get gobbled up by somebody else who gets gobbled up by somebody else.
All right.
And I personally have dealt with like national type banks, and it's not the same,
Yeah.
and I learned that from you when you were with Iberia, being a local bank at that time. It just made things just a little easier. Things where I'm not saying it exactly on a handshake, but pretty darn close
So,
to it. So that was really good. So one of the reasons I had wanted to chat with you today is really I think what you can bring to the table for a lot of our folks that are there's one or two scopes. Either they're entering the restaurant business or in it, like maybe for their first year, but there's also that group that have been in it and been successful and they're kind of moving on. So it's kind of three different types of potential bank candidates, that would go work with you. And of course, the bigger thing is they're all going to be looking for some kind of funding or money or something, whatever they didn't get from their neighbors and aunts and uncles or whatever have you,
so,
they got to go through some traditional lending. So let me just take the first person. So we have that person has some experience. Maybe they were a chef somewhere, and they're looking to kind of get started. They're going to need a banking relationship. What would be some things that you might think of to suggest to that new owner? Maybe some things they need to have in line to be able to do business with just about any bank, but mostly like with you guys.
probably at that stage, they're really in that hustle mode.
Mm-hmm.
They're grinding it out, and they're very focused on the craft. Right.
Okay.
They're trying to put out the best dishes, and be the best. To someone that's at that stage, they're probably not worrying about documentation as much.
Yeah.
And if you're starting to step into that place where you're moving from a food truck or a pop up to a lease spot, or maybe you've been in a lease spot for a while, but things are starting to scale up.
Right.
That documentation part of it is, it's it's golden, because any bank that you go to, especially for that initial capital or line of credit, you're going to need strong documentation to show them that historically you're able to keep up with a potential loan.
Now, when you're talking about documentation, what might that mean? Somebody that really doesn't understand what that language is, what would that kind of entail?
It could be QuickBooks, internal statements, your tax returns, making sure that your taxes are done at a timely manner.
Yeah.
It could be, things like your inventory. If you're a larger restaurant and you have a big inventory, or some of your sales to show. It's sometimes difficult that first year to receive lending because banks like 2 to 3 years of revenue.
Right.
But ultimately having that to share and be able to be a good storyteller to articulate your sales. And I think any banker that hears that from a knowledgeable owner feels comfortable with lending.
Do you say at that point, let's just say somebody's in their first year, do they need to have some kind of written presentation of this is my vision, this is what we're looking to do, other than just like, yeah, I can cook? What would be some things that you would want to see from them?
Yeah, I mean, the business plan, projections, yes, absolutely. I'll be honest with you, I've never seen a bad performer ever.
Right.
So we kind of take that with a grain of salt, but it's nice to have really good relative projections, just to say, hey, here's the baseline of what we think, and here's my logic to the growth or maybe the stabilization of this project or this restaurant is.
Well, I think you hit it right there. I guess if somebody comes to you and they at least have some valid points on why their concept would work, that would help you, understand and possibly, see what you can do for them, in the future, or if not right then.
Yeah.
So would a good start be, let's just say that maybe they don't have a whole lot that most banks would say, we can't lend you a whole lot of money, but at least maybe what would be a good start? Just opening an account with you guys and maybe looking at a small line of credit. How would be?
Yeah, opening up that account and working with most likely a business banker, someone that you could at least start that conversation with, so they could get a little comfortable, and that this is a people business, right? People want to work with other folks, and having that understanding, and hey, in this situation, this person does X. It's a good baseline, as well as it's a good baseline to show that bank that, hey, I'm willing to sit for maybe 6 months or a year and just grind it out, work, show you my efforts, and then come back to you when things are a little bit more practical for you to lend.
Right. Well, that sounds really logical. It seems like that's kind of a practical start, but a lot better than just going to some national bank, opening an account, never see anybody, and then expect to get something, in 6 months or a year.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's all about the connection, which leads to connectivity.
Right.
That little conversation that you have with your banker can spark an idea that the banker has understanding of, whether it's a introduction they can make to you, a type of loan that they can provide.
Right.
The more your banker knows, it's kind of like a doctor. They're able to diagnose and provide recommendations.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Where maybe somewhere where you only get in that once a year call, Christmas call, how you doing? You might not have that. And in this business, I think there's a lot of collaboration going on right now, especially during the summertime. And having that network, the more people looking out for you, sharing their experiences, I see that only as a benefit.
Right. Absolutely. No, that all sounds very practical kind of stuff that, somebody should be considering. So, of course, I'm thinking, too, it wouldn't hurt if they invited you to the restaurant for a meal.
Yes, we do site visits all the time. Love those. So,
no, absolutely. No, of course, it's always good to promote your wares and stuff. Showing what your talents are. Now, so that's kind of the startup, call it so to speak. But then we've got these other folks that are maybe 2 years into the process, and they're looking to expand some kind of way, either
Yeah.
within their own restaurant, either opening up a new area of it or some other facet of it. What kind of things may change with that perhaps they need to consider when coming to see yourself or any other banker for their lending needs?
Yeah, probably financials are a little bit more complicated, right?
Mm-hmm.
We got more employees, hopefully more inventory because we're, making more plates,
Sure.
as well as just utilities,
Mm-hmm.
handling that. So trying to mastermind all those moving pieces, you really become from an executive chef now to starting to become a CEO,
Right.
right? And the good ones start to realize that they have to step out a little bit from the kitchen to help manage the minutia of everything. It's a fun place to be, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
now you're starting to have stabilized revenues, which hopefully are growing. So
Right.
not stabilized, but they're growing. You're managing your expenses. But in the banking world, it starts to open up options for me,
Right.
right? We can start doing things a little bit more creative, like
Mm-hmm.
SBA.
Okay.
So if you're looking for that next building or equipment, or you need a new hood, we can start to implement things like a government guarantee loan that helps
Okay.
the bank provide, needed equipment or expanded space for a growing restaurant.
Absolutely. No, then that's typically when they're at that point.
Right.
At least what I've seen, a lot of folks when they've started up a new restaurant, they may have bought used equipment,
Mm-hmm.
and those things will, of course, at some point in time and break, and they're going to need newer and better. And so, needing the financing for that to help is going to be a big deal. What are some call it some crazy stories that somebody came to see you, looking for lending, but you're like, uh, I'm not sure. You have a lot of work to do here. Can you think of anything that comes off a hand?
Oh,
I'm sure, probably a lot. I'm sure.
absolutely. One that I could tell, and that is crazy in the sense of decision making, is that I had a food truck,
Mm-hmm.
and it was I think it was just one guy, but he had a key employee that was pretty much their right hand, and they were making a little over 430,000
Wow,
a
nice.
year
Okay.
out of this food truck. They were positioned perfectly. The community knew about them, and they had the crazy idea of trying to open up a spot. I don't think it's crazy, but just I would say the proportion of expense to revenue, they would not be able to find that within the
All right.
building.
Okay. Yeah.
And I would just say that was a crazy story that I have, because it's someone that was giving up large amount of profits to go into a building.
Well, they already had something that was working nicely for them, and going into it, because I would say a brick and mortar is quite different than the food truck.
Absolutely.
Especially with your expenses. I mean, if you got a lease, I'm pretty sure the leasing part is the big issue, because location. Your food truck, you can move just about
Yeah.
anywhere, right? Anywhere that allows the food trucks. But once you've got that brick and mortar, you're there, and so you got to make sure that location there is a good one. And so
Mhm.
I'm sure all of that goes into place. And I could see how you'd be like, well, are you sure you want to do this because you're doing so well with this?
Yeah, and that's the tough thing about restaurants. I feel like having that flagship brick and mortar in the restaurant business is what all chefs are trying to get to, right?
Right.
And the expansion of that is something that they're all shooting for. But sometimes, I kind of think, I'm like, man, would 3 food trucks be able to do more? From a bottom line standpoint. But that's one of the crazy stories I have.
Yeah,
Maybe
no.
from like the finance people listening in on this are probably going nuts, and everybody else
Yeah.
is like, "What is he talking about?"
Yeah.
But
No, that's pretty interesting. Well, I mean, but it makes sense,
Yeah.
because I've seen that in different lines of businesses where you're trying to recreate something that is already working, and it's never the best solution. It's just because it's newer and prettier and
Yeah,
whatever have you shiny, and so you want to move to it. So
the shiny ball syndrome sometimes
yeah,
really hurts businesses because there is an optimal, right, XY axis that we're trying to pin down and get not too much top, not too much in a bit in the
right,
at the bottom, but in that sweet spot where things are pumping, hopefully without you managing, which is allowing you to go else and do business at an enterprise level for your restaurant, or have a key person,
mm-hmm.
doing business for you, because right now, like the advertising and marketing for a business, it's almost the lifeblood of a restaurant. So
Right.
it's almost you have to have somebody handling that, content influencers, showing up to your restaurants and managing that as well.
It's interesting you say that
Yeah.
because I'm actually I think the last 2 months there were two different locations I went to because they showed up on social
Yeah.
media. I'd never even heard of these places, and I went there, and it's just only because it looked interesting, and so we'll try it out. So
I think
think you're
part
right.
of this podcast, we
Mhm.
should have folks invite us, and we'll also rate and
Hey,
show off
no,
their dishes.
there you go. Yeah, no, I would do that for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, kind of actually, I have two other things I wanted to hit with, and so this is something with a lot of our clients that we talk to them about, and this is from a pure non-banker standpoint. So I might be wrong, but you got to tell me if I'm right or wrong on this. So, a lot of times I encourage our people when they don't need it to apply for a line of credit because that's when they're in their best financial spot. And, if they get it, use it a little bit, pay it off, use it a little bit, pay it off. Because I find when you're finally at the point of needing it, your financials may not look as good as they should. What do you think about that theory? Am I off or?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right on it. I mean, it's not just a theory; it's proven. Banks can only lend to those that have the ability to repay,
Right.
and that's kind of like a stop in one sentence there. So you're right about that, but outside of that, it just, as a restaurant, it allows you options, right? Having a line of credit, even if you don't need it,
Right.
but having it in place for those times that maybe payroll gets sidetracked. There's a big event. Maybe you live in a city where the weekends really ebbs and flows,
Right.
or you have major events like the Super Bowl coming in town where you would need a line of credit for extracurricular activities around the restaurant. I think that's super important, as well as when you don't need it, I can't stress the amount of options that's available to those that are in the place to take that. And it's not just from the restaurant standpoint, it's
Right.
also from the individual owner
Okay.
that's able to take advantage of certain things like home equity lines of credit that might be at a cheaper rate, or different credit cards that they're able to take advantage of. And then just their position with the bank. They're just able to get favorable terms,
Right.
from being in a good relationship with the bank, as well as having a squeaky clean credit profile.
So when we're talking about the squeeze, I was thinking about this. So you're talking about the three major credit reporting agencies. Is there a different one for business that sometimes banks look at, or no? Are you guys really looking at the three main?
Oh yeah, there is a business credit report out there, and we do look at somewhat of a blend. Every bank has their own formula for that. So
Okay, I got you.
I think it's important to maintain that. I couldn't tell you the weight that it carries versus having clean financials and a great cash flow. But I would suspect that if you did have a big hiccup somewhere on that report, it would be a cause for concern and further conversation.
Right. Okay, no, I get that. And so, but even if there was a hiccup, I would imagine there are ways like if you're looking at that's just only part of the picture, right? So it's not to say that somebody maybe that doesn't have the best, an 800 credit score is the only people that can get a lending. If they got a good financial position, they've got a good plan, all of this, and maybe they're in the low 700s or even high 600s, that they still have an opportunity there to
Yeah,
do some borrowing.
your chances with that would be better at a smaller bank or a community bank
Right.
that's based, because most likely at a larger bank, the underwriting is being handled at a central location, where when the decision comes back, the banker may not have as much rudder on the decision to,
Right.
change the decision. Whereas for us, we're market centric. So each market place has their own decision making, their
Okay.
own president. So I'm able to go in to our president and talk to them, sit down,
That's good.
and make a judgment call.
Yeah.
I mean, shucks, go over there and try the gumbo if we have to.
Yeah.
But that's where the rubber meets the
Right.
road in business. And I think no matter what you're doing, relationship is usually what's the small nuggets that turn things into big wins.
Okay. No, I get that. Now I know this next level of entity I'm thinking about. All the stuff you've already told me, all kind of are still part of that. But what are some special considerations? Let's say we've got this chef-owned business that
Mm-hmm.
got a successful location, and he says, you know what, I think we can do good with a second location somewhere, whether it be another part of town or in another city even, or anything like that. What would you guys be looking at from a banking standpoint? Because they're probably going to need some lending to get started.
Absolutely.
What are some things that they should be considering to have ready, available to talk to you about in wanting to do this?
I would say, again, going back to documentation, really strong tax returns.
Mhm.
And outside of that, if you're of that size, possibly even company prepared quarterly statements,
Okay.
which will allow and give a banker or a lender more of a breakdown, an itemized breakdown of expenses and revenues, and really allow them to understand. Because sometimes the tax return is just really general, high level. You don't have a
Right.
full idea of what some expenses are in that case. So I would say that would be big, especially if you go through SBA, which is a lot of documentation.
Sure. Right.
But it's one of the best, terms you could get out there, and I'm a big supporter of SBA.
Oh, nice. Very good. No, well, that's good to know, because there is I know a lot of clients out there have
Mm-hmm.
sought that, and I feel banks get a comfort level to some degree with that because it is backed by the SBA,
Yeah.
and so it gives some, I don't call it rule bending, but it just gives it a little easier to make some decisions here.
Yeah, it's a three-legged table
Yeah.
that you could push into the corner,
Yeah.
and it's a little bit more stable.
And it works, right?
And
Exactly.
it works,
Exactly.
And it's a great product.
Would you guys ever look at like personnel, like who's running the show when the owner's not there? Is that important to you too?
Yeah,
or?
if you have a key manager that's the lifeblood of that business, and they're pretty much the operational manager. Yeah, absolutely. Right. And as an owner, you would want to protect that person with possibly, key person insurance, and make sure that that they have some operational rights.
Right. No, okay. No, I got you. That's just some good stuff. I got to tell you, we have a lot of people that will benefit a lot from this. And so, kind of a final question. You have some favorite types of food that you always go for? You don't have to name the restaurant, but just what it is. Some of you like.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's so much. I mean, which it's gonna sound like everything, but I don't know. I'm really in like a sushi phase now.
Yeah.
And then your classics are around the city. Some of the po' boys.
Getting hungry already.
Yeah, some of the po' boys, gumbo. I mean, I live not too far from Cafe Du Monde.
Oh,
So
sweet.
sometimes
Okay.
I find my car navigating um, down that way to go to work instead
Yeah.
of
Uh-huh.
going on the interstate. But yeah, I don't know. I enjoy some of the classics because it's kind of places that I hold near and
Yeah.
dear to my heart.
Well, I think being from this area in New Orleans area, we just can't help. We have so many choices, so many different uh, tastes that it is kind of hard to say, oh, this is the only thing I go with here. I
Yeah,
mean, you name it, we've got it here, and I just it
yeah,
makes a huge difference. And it's funny because I know when I've gone out of town to, I can't name the cities, but I know there's like certain cities I go to is like, yeah, this is not quite New Orleans with the restaurants, So we definitely love our food down here. One final note. So, if somebody wanted to get in touch with you and talk to you more about, some possible banking, some
yeah.
commercial lending, what would be the best way to do that?
Yeah, they could connect with me on LinkedIn,
Okay,
simply Charles Gaspard, as
excellent.
well as email me at C, first initial Gaspard,
Okay,
at mcbt.com.
mcbt.com. I think that's easy enough to remember.
Yep.
All right, Charles. I appreciate you coming down, man.
Yeah,
All
thank
right,
you.
buddy.